Going now, Pete Snyder is with us of Disruptor Capital. Pete, good to have you with us.
Johnny, great to be with you. That better not be my bumper music.
No, that's the bumper music for Pam Northam. We haven't quite come up with yours yet, Pete, but I'm sure we will. Once you send me...
Oh, come on, John. You know what it is. It's ZZ Top, baby. I'm bad. I'm nationwide.
No, I need a new clip for what was my friend who did my show, Pete the Pig Rig. I need another Pig Rig clip. That's what I need.
Hey, speaking of which, do you notice the Pig Rig seems to be talking a little bit of smack about you today, if you've checked the Twitters?
I haven't checked that, but I will do that now. Let me see.
The Pig Rig has resurfaced, and he is focused on his public enemy number one, John Fredericks, right now.
The Pig Rig has resurfaced. I haven't heard from him in a while. I thought maybe he was on hiatus or something.
What did you do to the rig? The rig's quite angry with you.
Pete's Pig Rig. Let's see what he has to say. He says, he says, tune in, and that's not bad. Hey, he said that it's rigged. I don't know what's rigged. Hey, listen, let's go to bracketology and start on my show today at 8:30. Ben Tribbett will be with me, and VA Political Memes. You can follow him on Twitter. Go to VA Political Memes. Okay, they did a brilliant bracketology, Pete. And I just want to start with that because it's very creative. So they did a 64 playoff, and it was to find out who was the biggest a-hole in Virginia politics. And as soon as I saw it, I knew I had a shot, right? Just it doesn't even matter. I said, I am definitely going to make the Final Four, the Sweet 16.
You better take home that title. I mean, I can't think of a larger one.
I know I'm going to win that. So I squared off in the first round with what's his name from Blue Virginia. He doesn't even have enough people that know who the hell he is. So I won that one easy. Nobody reads a stupid blog. So I won that easy. But now I'm squared off with Governor McGenius. And that's not fair that I should be playing him in the second round.
Who knew that there would be a boomlet of sympathy and nostalgia for the Macker, right? I mean, who knew?
Well,
I think you're going to take that one.
I put up a billboard.
John. I got to tell you, I got wind of this thing a couple days ago, and, I had a major beef with the selection committee. I mean, I was seated number 57. I mean, these guys have to be blind. I'm a much bigger jerk than that. So, I got waxed in the first round.
Who beat you in the first? Who beat you in the first round?
I forget who beat me, but it was. I should have won. This is my reputation is undeserving of being a nice guy.
Nah, you don't say enough. You don't say enough. You don't say enough a-hole things.
The fact that you were a number 10 seed and not the number 1 or at least the number 2 seed is beyond me. So the committee clearly didn't know what they're doing. I have a bet of I don't know where you are on the bracket versus Tribbett, but that's like a neck and neck thing. I'll give the push to Fredericks.
I think. I'm in with McAuliffe in the next round. I'm definitely a bigger a-hole than McAuliffe. No, there's no question about it. In fact, Pete, you probably didn't know this, but I just bought a billboard in Richmond on I-95 and 64. It's got a picture of Terry McAuliffe on it holding a beer for our new station there, WJFN 100.5 FM, and with the caption, "Miss me yet?" So there you go. So it's gotten a lot of play.
Again, who would have ever predicted, and what kind of things would have to happen to have a boomlet of nostalgia in Virginia for the Macker? Who knew?
Well, these people, these three stooges are so ridiculous. It makes you long for Governor McAuliffe because, agree with him or not, he got jobs in. There were no scandals, and you had legitimate policy debates about Medicaid expansion or other stuff. I mean, he did play strong arm politics, but he ran a tight ship, and you had none of this nonsense going on. Pete, and I tell you what, the Democrats have really snatched defeat here from the jaws of victory because the Republicans were faced with generational electoral Armageddon in November. They were going to lose the House, and they're still going to lose the Senate. And once you got Kirk Cox out of there, they'd have no ability to raise a dime, and they were done. Now, I think they gained seats in the House. The state Senate, though, I just don't see the math. The District 13, they're not going to beat John Bell, and the Wagner decision to leave, Pete. I mean, just this is why people hate politics. I mean, I backed Wagner in all of his races. He's a great friend of mine. But you know how politics is. I mean, he takes a job in the administration, in the Northam blackface administration, in order to increase his pension when he retires, which puts his seat at risk. I mean, now the seat goes from probable Republican to a toss-up at best, maybe slight edge to the Dems. And he does that in order to get more pension money and put the state Republican Party basically upside down. I mean, how do you justify that, Pete?
John, you don't. I mean, you just don't. It's why, as you said, why people hate politics, whether you're aimed at the swamp or many swamps around America and state capitals. Richmond certainly is becoming one. And, you know, I know it's your job to prognosticate on every single district, but let's just pull back for a second and look at the macro picture. It's just been a really sad and hurtful time to be a Virginian right now. You know, look, we're used to being celebrated throughout American history and, you know, celebrated for our big wins, celebrated for our great business climate, and now we're an actual punchline. And, you know, when you have Terry McAuliffe saying, you know, publicly, how the heck are we going to attract businesses to Virginia given what we have in office right now? And it's kind of, I look at, you know, the three statewide elected Democratic officials, and, you know, it's kind of like that show, The Walking Dead. These guys are dead, but they're not going anywhere. In fact, they're roaming around. And, you know, why are they doing that? Well, it's because they're clinging to power. They have nothing else to do. And it's all about partisanship and spite. One of them's not going to leave because they don't want to give it to the other guy because they hate each other or they betrayed each other. And they all won't budge because, heaven forbid, we have the General Assembly appoint a Republican. You know, it's really putting just, you know, raw political power and partisanship over leadership. And Virginia needs leadership right now. We are in a very, very sad state of affairs from top to bottom, and it's got to change.
Well, listen, look, none of them are going to resign, right? And you know, there's a story behind all of them. I mean, to me, the most hypocrisy and of them all is Mark Herring, who to me has turned into a complete comedy act, crying and is saying, this has haunted me for 40 years. And yet, you know, 3 days before he said he did blackface, he blasted the governor for doing the same thing in a blistering press release. I mean, the whole thing makes me sick. Fairfax can't resign, right? I mean, you understand that, right? Because if he resigns, there's some portion of admitting something may have happened. He's vehemently denied it. He made a speech in the well on Sine Die, basically calling it a political lynching, which is you know, pretty hard hitting speech. So he can't resign. So they're stuck with him. But here's the problem. I mean, these guys can't go on in public without protest. So Northam, Herring,
John, you hit on this earlier. Think about all their candidates running for delegate or state senate this year, and you know, those candidates aren't going to be looking for money or for leadership from those three. They can't raise money. Look at where there's 30 or 40 2020 Democratic presidential candidates, all of which are going to be interested in picking up electoral votes in Virginia. None of those people could be seen with our elected officials in Virginia. So it is a sad state of affairs. All three of them are just sitting there clinging to power. They don't want to do anything else. They hate the other guy. They don't want to give that up, and they certainly don't want to allow a Republican to be in there because, heaven forbid, you're putting partisanship over leadership, and it's just disgusting.
All right, so I want to get into some other things. So let's get to politics in Virginia, the political climate going into 2019. I'm predicting right now that the Republicans are going to gain seats in the House. I think 5. There's a couple seats redistricting at risk. There's a couple they're going to lose, but there's about 8, I think 7 or 8 they're going to gain. And I think they have a net gain of 5. The Democrats are not going to win the House, and Eileen Fillercorn's leadership there has been absolutely pathetic, especially.
It's atrocious.
It's been atrocious, pathetic.
John, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got to tell you, I mean, let's think about how a lot of this all started with that horrific infanticide bill that she allowed and the governor allowed to be put on the floor of the General Assembly. Terry McAuliffe has publicly said he wouldn't support a bill like that. It's infanticide, and he wouldn't have allowed it to be introduced, if he were governor. So, she has done just a miserable job with that caucus. That's got to be a circular firing squad. I can't imagine what goes on. Obviously, they leak like a sieve, but that's not leadership, and it's not helping the Commonwealth. And it's only going to get worse. Yeah,
that's why I think the Republicans hold the House. The problem, Pete, is the state Senate, because there is no way they're going to be able to win that District 13. That's the problem. That's the Dick Black retiring seat. And the biggest problem they have is John Bell, who's going to he's going to win the Democratic nomination. He's a two-term delegate from Loudoun County, former Air Force colonel. His son just died of an overdose of opioids, which is one of his big issues. He'll spend and raise $1.5 million. And there's not really a candidate there to beat him. So where
did you get the 1 point? You sound like you're talking off of Democratic talking points.
He's going to raise $1.5 million. Look, I mean, I call it like I see it.
Why not $1.6 million or $1.4 million?
Well,
whose talking points are you going after?
It's going to be, it's going to be over $1 million and under $2 million is what he's going to raise. There's no Republican that can match that, and you guys don't even have a candidate.
That he gave you say.
Do you guys have a candidate? You don't even have a candidate.
Look, I'm a little rosier on that. I think you're right that we're going to retain the House. I have it at 6 to 7. You have it at 5. But I do think we're going to retain the House. I think the political environment's getting better and better as every month passes for Republicans. And I got to tell you, a lot of it has to do with our economy, which is happening from nationally and happening from Washington, based on the policies of the president. Unleashing our businesses and entrepreneurs to do their thing by cutting back regulations and cutting taxes. Hey, it actually works. So I like the political environment that's going on. I think we have a better shot out in that Loudoun Senate seat than you think. I think also we have John Whitbeck running for chairman out there against a very weak incumbent. I think some good things can happen out there in Loudoun, and I'm much more optimistic than I was 3 months ago.
Then you get to the Frank Wagner seat, Virginia 7th Senate, Pete. And that's now a risk, and the candidate's not emerged for that. Glenn Davis was going to run. There were residency issues he didn't want to deal with. Plus, they made a strategic decision, which is this. They need to keep the House. His seat would be vulnerable if he did leave. And Kirk Cox is like, look, we're going to win the House. You'll be in a leadership position. You go to the Senate, they lose, you're in the minority. You're better off staying with us. He decided to do that. I mean, right now, the only announced candidate, I think, is school board member Carolyn Weems. She isn't going to win. So until they get a candidate there, that seat, which Wagner would have won is like R+3 or 4, that's at major risk. Johnny,
I heard there's a dark horse candidate that might be emerging out there for that seat. Have you heard this?
No, who? Honestly, who?
The Fraulein.
No, she doesn't even live in the district, and she isn't even in town.
And I'm stuck doing. Mobile. I mean, come on, the Fraulein.
I'm stuck doing the wash here while she's out of town. Forget it.
Fredericks would be a tremendous candidate for that seat.
No, she doesn't. She has no interest.
The pig rig picked up that gossip out on the trail, and I think she'd make a tremendous candidate. She
is running for re-election to national delegate to the Republican National Convention in Charlotte. That she's going to do, but you're not going to see her for state Senate. But you guys need a candidate there. I mean, if you can get a decent candidate, you have a shot to win. Let's get a couple more minutes. Let's get to the Trump economy and these tax cuts, Pete. How does this play out going into 2020?
Well, look, everyone has predicted that this economy is going to tank, that Donald Trump wouldn't be successful with his economic policies, and every quarter we're just going to fall off a cliff. And look, this has been a 10-year run for the economy. It will end at one point in time, but I've got to give Donald Trump and his economic team a hell of a lot of credit. This thing keeps on chugging. So, I think so long as unemployment is near zero these days, it's just astounding. And you look at in minority communities, record low unemployment for women, record low unemployment. and the economy keeps on ticking up. So I'm bullish, much more bullish than I was probably 6 months ago, and I think it's going to bode well for 2019. And if we can keep on hanging on, it's going to certainly help the president in 2020. Now, look, you live by the sword, die by the sword. If things go into the gutter, it's going to be, a huge headwind at the president's face. But I think he understands the American consumer in a way that no other president has in the history of our republic. And he's got a pretty keen and good team working on the economy, and he's letting entrepreneurs like you and me do our thing. And I think that's going to bode well for the country.
All right, I'll see how it plays out. Pete Snyder, Disruptor Capital. We're almost out of time. Pete, your pick to win the NCAA men's tournament, the big dance, who is it?
I think our team from Charlottesville, the Virginia Cavaliers, are going to slay the ghosts and demons of the past. They just brought home their fourth ACC title in 6 years, and I think they're going to take the whole thing. My William and Mary tribe, unfortunately, was bounced from the CAA.
Yeah, they got bounced from the dance. Yeah.
So they're not going to make the dance this year. And who do you have, Johnny?
I'm going with an upset out of one of the mid-major divisions. I'm going with the Houston Cougars to win it all. I'll see you, Pete. John Fredericks Radio Network.